okay? We did mention the PowerPoint presentations that you saw throughout the day would be posted in the Success community. They are already there. So if you belong to the Midwest Dreamin 2015 group, your sessions that you attended today are all loaded in there, as well as maybe the ones you couldn't get to and want to see the slides from those. They're all in there and downloadable for you to use. So if you're not a member of that group already, please join so that you can get your hands on those. We have truly saved the best for last today. We are so excited that we get to bring to you Peter Coffey, the VP of Strategic Research at Salesforce. I know I'm excited to see him. We do want you to stick around right after Peter's awesome closing keynote, though. We're going to do the drawing for the free Dreamforce Pass right after his speech. In fact, I think he's probably going to draw it for us. And you do need to be present to win. So please stick around. We're going to get that taken care of. And please join me in giving a hearty Midwest Dreamin' welcome to Peter Coffey.
Thanks so much. It's a wonderful and completely unplanned coincidence that I was just introduced by multiple requests for you to give feedback at the end of the day. Because the man who gave us that idea as being part of the systems that we build died a little more than 50 years ago. I'm talking about Norbert Wiener, the man who coined the word cybernetics, from a word meaning to steer things, to give feedback. And it's interesting to note that, first of all, he died more than 50 years ago, and yet the concepts he brought to us are still considered to be at the frontier of designing both physical systems and business and procedural systems. And yet, in some ways, he was too successful for his own good. Because when he first proposed, and in fact proved mathematically, the idea of the bit, the on-off, the 1-0, the two-state thing, as the not merely most convenient way, but provably the most cost-effective way to represent information with a given amount of precision at the lowest possible cost. He was ridiculed for having taken this word information that everyone had always thought of as being an abstract mental state and proposing that it could be almost a physical thing, that it could be a quantity with mass. Well, darn it, we believed him, and we forgot that inform, before information was a noun, inform was a verb. And to inform was to impart, was to alter, was to redirect a person, a behavior, a discipline. Someone once said, for example, shipbuilding is informed by fluid dynamics. Knowing the equations for water will not make you a good shipbuilder. Not knowing them could make you a very bad one. And so to inform is not merely to entertain, and is not merely to dump data, but is to change behavior. And if you invest a day of your valuable time and don't do something different on Monday, maybe you were entertained, but you were not arguably informed. And so I've begun the title for today's closing with that goal. Dan did a terrific job this morning of telling you why you were here today. As closing speaker, it's my job to give you a resolution for what you will do differently tomorrow, and next week, and next year. I deprecate the use of the word cloud because it is too much about what we don't want to think about. The function of the cloud model is to let you say, I don't want to have to deal with certain things at all. They're not worth my time. And we use the word dream, of course, at Dreamforce, Midwest Dreamin, and so on. Dreams are wonderful, but adding deadlines makes them goals, and crucially, adding instructions turns them into plans. And you will notice that lately we've changed our trade dress from the cloud to the 6 circles of things you need to do. The cloud is an enabler. The cloud is a context. The reason why it matters is that it makes it possible for you to accomplish, to achieve, to advance yourselves and your organizations. And that's the vision I want to share with you today. there will be no safe harbor statement. But there will be a Schrodinger's brain statement. You know Schrodinger's cat, put the cat in the box, there's a device in the box with a 50% chance of killing the cat. And the question is the cat alive or dead? The answer is, well, it's both until the moment you open the box and look inside. Well, my brain is the same way. We don't actually know if the thing is alive or dead until you open it up and observe it. And so what I did with the organizers is said, look, a Salesforce Keynote used to be very simple. Cloud good. On-prem bad. CRM wonderful. Thank you very much. With various elaborations on that theme. But now we're being asked as the 4-time #1 world's most innovative company, being asked as the developer of a new philanthropic model. The 111 program reached 1 million hours of volunteer time accumulative last week. How about that? And so we're being asked to talk about lots of different things. And so I gave the organizers this list and said, what do you want? And they said, this is what we want. We polled the organizers, we polled the team. This is what we feel would be the 3 key themes for a closing keynote today. And so this is what I brought for you. And the interesting thing, of course, is that these are not separate things. A culture of innovation is what makes it possible for a company to drive forward, and is what makes it an example of and an enabler of the future of work. So let's see if we can work our way through these ideas in something resembling a sequence. A lot of words there, but Peter Drucker has been wonderful at giving us specifics for what innovation is and, crucially, what it is not. There are many companies that, we're boldly innovative, we have new ideas all the time. Or even, we're boldly innovative, we bring forth new products all the time. Well, 2 of our biggest competitors have brought forth new initiatives over the last 2 years, and in each case, by an amazing coincidence, the analyst community estimates that about 4% of their customers find value in those initiatives and have any intention of adopting them, until, of course, the gun is put to the head and they're told the old stuff's going off support. That is not innovation. It is some diseased and toxic mix of invention and coercion. But those 2 things added together do not produce innovation. Let me boil it down. Yeah, well, of course we ran this whole thing on Salesforce, because can you imagine the opportunities for fraud and abuse if we did it with Excel and Access? Imagine the opportunities for parents to enroll in more than one school, or for administrators to make up mythical students. All of a sudden, I mean, by sudden, I mean in geological time, this happened in less than 5 years. The cloud went from the risky thing that was only good for low-value data to the source of trusted, central, guarded truth. Oh my, that's a change in perception. But the most fun that we have is with that word up there, incongruities, because the road to Damascus moments that define the history of this company are relatively few in number and profoundly important. Mark's question 16 years ago, why is it that systems like Amazon and eBay and Google are discoverable and understandable, and people roll with their being changed without complaint, and then they go to work and it's a green screen system where the slightest change takes days, weeks, or months, where training is expensive and ineffective? Why is that? And the recognition of that fundamental incongruity was the genesis of Salesforce. And then a few years later, why is it that even with the best enterprise systems we have, people still need to go looking for information? We've got systems out there like Facebook that are doing a better and better job. This is an observation we made 5 or 6 years ago. That are doing a better and better job of figuring out what would be interesting to you and allowing groups to form in an organic way and bringing information to you in an algorithmic way. Why should business software not work like that too? And that, of course, was the genesis of Chatter and communities. You may have noticed we're making some investments now in machine learning and pattern recognition to get even better at automatic identification of topics and recognition of expert groups in the product, because that's where things need to go to make them scalable. Speaking of scalability, many of you may not have heard this story, but the founder of EdgeSpring, which we acquired some years ago, which became Wave, which became the foundation of the Analytics Cloud, walked out of a meeting one evening where they'd been working hard on developing the schema for a data warehouse project for a company that maybe in 3 or 4 months will start to return some real enterprise value. And someone said, where should we eat? And someone else pulled on a mobile device and pulled up Yelp, and someone else pulled up Kayak, and in about 30 seconds they picked a well-reviewed restaurant of the kind they all liked within walking distance. And he said, what is going on here? How is it possible that a relatively well-behaved and static data schema takes months of labor to define, with the result that it will over-provision resources most of the time, and under-provision them the most recently, where someone shared a survey result that 54% of companies surveyed don't even have a big data project on their whiteboards yet, let alone in practice. And someone else was saying, well, yes, but the problem is you can't hire big data program graduates. I said, okay, I'm putting you two together and concluding that if you download the open source Hadoop, start throwing it at some of your data, and come up with one interesting insight as a result, you have just vaulted into the top half of your industry in your big data capabilities. Why are you waiting for someone to come to you with a master's degree in data science when you can just start doing this stuff and start developing the competency and immediately be in the top half of the bell curve? And then another month, maybe in the top 10th. There is no reason to wait for permission or to wait for traditional institutions to meet your needs for skills that can be so readily acquired at such a low cost by trying it and seeing what you get. And I urge you all to start thinking about ways to do that. Some companies that we work with are very much in the spirit of Joy's Law. They are doing really cool stuff. Philips does a lot of great innovation. So they had a great idea. Let's take the Philips reputation for innovation and create a business unit called Philips Innovation Services. Our smartest people get paid to go visit other companies, help them innovate, and come back with pollen on their legs of all the things they learned while they were there. How cool is that? We're going to get paid to have our smartest people exposed to the smartest people in other industries and learn cool stuff while sharing what they already know. Wow! That's very, very intelligent behavior. You don't maybe know the name Diageo, but you may know some of their brands like Bailey's and J&B and Smirnoff. I'm not suggesting deep personal intimacy, but you may know some. And they have gone out into the market and said, hey, we want to be your VC. You got an idea that might help us do what we do better? Tell us about it. Maybe we'll fund you. Maybe we'll buy you. Maybe we'll license your product, whatever. But again, they're embracing the reality of Joy's Law instead of denying it. They're saying, you know, there's people out there who know some really cool stuff that we haven't thought about. Let's find ways to make them want to share it with us instead of sharing it with somebody else. This enlarges into the more general idea of social selling, which is a phrase that's been widely abused and turned by some people into doing your sales pitch on LinkedIn instead of doing your sales pitch over the phone. That is not social selling. Social selling is turning yourself into a member of a professional and collaborative community in such a way that when the conversation gets around to, by the way, I need something that does X. Oh, wait a minute, I know you. We were both on the program committee for that professional conference last year. Yeah, you guys sell this stuff, right? Okay, come on in. You're immediately the preferred provider just because they already have a trust relationship with you. That's the essence of understanding this notion of communities enabled by connection to change the definition of value given and received. It's also particularly critical, sorry, I wanted to mention that last one. These days it's getting harder and harder to know who might say no in the purchasers' meetings. The number of people who can say no is actually getting larger, and in a room full of maybes, one no will generally carry the day. So you need to have vigorous advocates in organizations to overcome the unknown naysayers. You need to be building those relationships long before you want to go out there and actually start selling. Now, I've talked a couple of times about the manner in which we rolled out Chatter. I was with the company before, I was with the company after. I was a remote employee throughout, and I can tell you from my personal experience, with absolutely no exaggeration, the week we turned on Chatter, it was as if I was suddenly at the office every day, even though I was still working from my home in Los Angeles instead of San Francisco. And it was also as if I were in the London office, in the Sydney office, and in the New York office. I was in all the offices, having conversations that I had never had before. We deployed it in 2010. It has some wonderful characteristics, being event-driven, non-hierarchical, automatable. I've already talked about the fact that we can measure the interactions off of it. They inform our behavior, using inform as a verb. See what I did there? And Mark, 2 months later, got up in front of an audience in London and said, used to be I wasn't allowed to promote someone past the level of senior director if they had no direct reports, if they had no one on the org chart reporting to them. And he said, just gone to his board of directors and said, I need to be able to promote someone two levels higher to senior VP, even if they have no direct reports. Because we now have data that says there are people in this company who have the kind of influence and are informing our behavior at that kind of level of significance, even though no one in theory works for them. We are absolutely, quantitatively changing our corporate behavior based on these kinds of measurements. And this is why I'm always disappointed when a good, solid customer says, yeah, chatter just hasn't really caught fire here. Because there are so many doors that not only can't be opened, but can't even be seen to be available to be opened until you've created that kind of participatory, collaborative context in which these things can happen. And it's hard to anticipate it until you've lived it. So the best thing you can do is find people who can share that kind of experience. I really feel that that's one of the least successful initiatives we have, is to get chatter more universally adopted among our customers, precisely because of these benefits that are largely unanticipated by people who never see them. By the way, I also get a lot of pushback saying, oh, you guys, this is all B2C stuff. No, I'm sorry, B2B. Oddly enough, B2B buyers are human beings buying from other human beings. And it turns out that those who participate in LinkedIn-based research are farther into the purchasing process and decision-making process before what we used to laughably now call the first call pitch. I'm sorry, the first call is probably getting to that customer when they're already 70% of the way to making up their minds. Your first call is no longer their first impression of your brand. They've already formed a lot of impressions of your brand. If you're lucky, they've been positive ones based on your presence in and your contributions to their professional community. These are important words. Social selling leaders create more opportunities, realize more sales, are more productive. These are things that matter. Also, as I've made clear, I think from the beginning of my comments today, thinking of your product not as the object delivered, but as the experience created is increasingly important. Well, Gartner is estimating that 90% of companies now believe their competitive advantage will derive more from the experience they create in the customer's mind than from any intrinsic preference for the product itself. Substitutability of products is high. Open APIs make it easy to unplug and replug, industry standards, and so on. But if I can create a distinctive brand experience, that becomes a positive feedback loop where I want to be in the coolest community, and by virtue of being in it, I make it cooler because now I'm contributing more experiences to it. There is a certain degree of winner-take-all effect that does not happen if all you think about is the product you're producing. Mark Cuban has been very clear about this. He says, look, you can watch a basketball game from the comfort of your home, and the refrigerator is full of beer that cost you, $1 a bottle, not $5 a bottle. If I want you to come to the arena, I'd better be providing you with an experience that's unlike anything you can enjoy in your home. We're not in the basketball business. We're in the experience creation business. And in that, he is echoing something that Walt Disney said, order of 50 years ago. Do what you do so well that people will come again and bring their friends. That's a standard to which we can all aspire. Do what you do so well that people will say, this is so cool that I will make myself more valuable to my friends, to my professional peers, to my larger community by being the person who brought them to this wonderful thing. If you don't feel that you can have a conversation like that in your organization, stop waiting for permission and start that conversation. If you don't work weekends, Monday is soon enough. Because most companies are in a fool's paradise on this subject. The ones that even are remotely aware of user experience, by and large, overestimate how good they are at it. I'm sorry, 80% of manufacturers cannot be doing better or significantly better than their peers. In Lake Wobegon, all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average, but you can't all be above average in customer experience. The technology industries appear to be better informed by data and math skills than others. Only 68% of them think they're better than average. But no one there is prepared to admit that on average, they're average. They're not prepared to acknowledge that. Well, you need data. You need data. You need, this is what the customers say, this is what the people who should be our customers say. This is what the community by and large is saying about us. This is what the Radiant 6 data is showing. This is what the connected product data show are the frustrations encountered by our customers, that they're not capable of verbalizing to us. They may not even be conscious of them, but now we can measure behavior directly off the product and find insights into, gee, why are they doing it that way? Wow, they totally don't get that. All they have to do is push that one button and that 10-step process is handled for them. Or alternatively, do they not trust the 10-step process? You will get insights into the frustrations your customers have that your customers may not even be conscious of having and may certainly not be capable of describing well. Your customers are not test pilots, they're passengers. They haven't been trained to observe and report. They're just trying to get somewhere. And you need to stop expecting them to be designers and engineers. And this does mean a fundamentally different attitude toward data. The analytically challenged are the bottom third, and if the manager says, I don't believe the data will tend to be subordinated to the experience. And that's just a real shame, because the data might very well be right, but these companies focus on cost reduction. They use analytics as history, not as news. That's a fairly fundamental error. Analytics is not history. Analytics should be news, or better than news. It should be prediction. The companies that are going to triumph in the use of data are not merely recording what happened. They are building prediction models and recommendation engines. They are building the mechanisms of organizational learning, of consistent delivery of superior experience that gets better all the time. That's what they're doing with data. It's not about scale, it's about smart. And only the top 1/8 of companies today are anywhere near that level of thinking. So you immediately have an opportunity to join the upper tail of the bell curve by getting your company out of either of those two bottom or middle slots and saying, what are we doing right now that helps us become better predictors and better recommenders, so that our salespeople always know what the right upsell is, always know what the right companion product or service is, always can recommend the optimal partner to assist in a deal. Why can't 90% of our people do this as well as only the top 10% do today? We have the raw materials and the tools to make that happen. We just need to define that as a goal and proceed to get going on it. Because Doug Engelbart, also about 50 years ago, did a session that's been called the mother of all demos. He was copying and pasting and hyperlinking and doing some amazing stuff, but he was doing it on a $30,000 workstation. And that was in 1962 money. We didn't have the atmosphere of connection that would make it possible for us to realize his vision, which is a strikingly modern sounding vision. We're going to have notation and information and algorithms assisting people, and he said this in 1962. Well, we wired the planet. In 2014, we installed as much new bandwidth as we have in the entire world in 2011. So if you're waiting for the hockey stick curve to level off and turn into an S-curve, hey, it's not happening. We're still putting bandwidth in there at an amazing rate that creates amazing opportunities. And also what happens when supply goes up, price goes down. Those dramatically downward sloping lines are costs of connectivity, Miami to Sao Paulo, Hong Kong to Tokyo. The gray and blue lines at the bottom that look like the x-axis, those are the relative costs of connection on the major routes like London to New York. If you're not designing your systems as if connectivity were infinite and free, then you're not designing them correctly for the future that you will be in. Yes, we're not there yet, But if you're designing your systems as if connectivity were intermittent and expensive, then they are fatally flawed designs, and you will have to rip them up and do them in different ways much sooner than you would like. And this is not just a first world phenomenon. It's not just in Marin County that everybody's got a cell phone. Some of you have heard this before, but Haiti has 70% unemployment and 70% smartphone adoption. People who have almost literally nothing else cling to that little connectivity object as the thing that's going to put them in touch with what little they do have. People need it, they can have it, they are getting it, and it is changing the environment in which the entire world lives at a startling rate. And that means that connection changes the rules. It used to be you knew who your competitor was. There's the section of the yellow pages where you are, and all those people around you are your competition. You buy and sell the same raw materials, you hire and fire the same people, you sell to the same customers, you knew who the competition was. Connection competitors are different. Your customers discover them. They don't even have to pay for advertising. People discover Uber virally. People discover Airbnb. Airbnb is now running billboards, but I'm not sure they have to. They defy category definition. What businesses is Uber in? You think of Uber's competitor as being taxi cabs? There's a guy driving an Uber car who, before he was an Uber driver, was making an adequate but not exciting living making custom jewelry that he sold at craft fairs. He's got a showcase in the back of the car. It's a very nice demographic that rides in Uber cars. Affluent people going to and from airports and hotels and restaurants. They're a good target audience, and he owns their eyeballs for 15 to 20 minutes. And he's got a Square terminal in the front. You can take their credit card payment on their way out of the car. And there are 5 other guys with his showcases in the back seat too, and he's making 6 figures now. You think Zales ever thought of Uber as a competitor? Uber owns an audience and knows that audience in a one-on-one way, knows where they go, where they're coming from, probably has enough data to know when you're visiting the one you're married to and visiting the one that you just know on the side, knows who likes what kind of gift, rubies for the one, emeralds for the other. Okay, we're good. So who is your competition today? If none of Google, Amazon, Walmart, PayPal, Square, or eBay are on your list, you do need a better list. You need a much better list, because as a friend of mine who was at ADP at the time said, Google doesn't just eat your lunch. You wake up in the morning and they're in your kitchen making breakfast. They know stuff. Uber knows stuff. eBay and Square and PayPal know stuff. And if you're not careful, you become a lean, mean, efficient, profitless cog in their machine, and their ownership of the knowledge of the customer experience and desire makes them the only profitable piece of that machine. It can happen. It could happen to you with all being Uberized. And then you ask, what would put us on everyone else's list of possible competitors? Because this is a really fun question to ask. What would turn you into that kind of amazing engine of disruption that terrifies everybody else who's in the same section of the yellow pages as you are? Talked to someone in agribusiness once. I'm sorry if you've heard this one before. He said, I don't get this social stuff. We sell bags of fertilizer. I said, I'm sorry, you may be producing and packaging and delivering bags of fertilizer. No farmer has ever turned one of them into an end table and made it an object of desire. I'm sorry. They are buying profitability. You only think you're selling fertilizer. You should be saying, how can I sell differential weather forecasting capability? How can I sell any number of auxiliary services that would make buying a bag of fertilizer from me 30% more useful in terms of agricultural productivity than buying the exact same bag of ammonium nitrate with a different logo on it. You must rip your consciousness out of the wetware between your ears and plant it into the head of your customer and look through the customer's eyes and ask yourself, what are they trying to accomplish at the end of the day, and how am I part of that solution? And if the answer isn't to your liking, fix it. Only you can do this. Now, you as individual professionals are going to be around for a while, a long while, and the skills of the future workplace are going to be different. The skills of the workplace that I'm describing here are skills that have been described with words like transdisciplinarity. The people who can know everything about one specific topic, well, they're mildly interesting. They're not as interesting as the people who can get people from 5 different disciplines together and produce insights that no individual in that group would have generated on their own. That's a tremendous value add. What Steve Jobs called sense-making. What John Hagel called social intelligence. These are not skills, by the way, in which there are degree programs. But they can be built by conscious practice. They can be built if you say, I'm going to get good at this. I'm going to read the appropriate books. I'm going to talk to the right people. I'm just going to develop an attitude that says, my value in this meeting today is not how much talking I do. My value in this meeting may come down to one question I ask where I realize that X, Y, and Z triangulate in a way that produces G, and we don't do G, and if our competitor starts to do G, we could be in big trouble. That might be my most important contribution today. And none of those three specialists may be thinking that way, and if you are, it's a nice ring of power you got in your hand there. Because getting outside your comfort zone and trying to do some things that you were never given a degree in doing, that you don't think you were hired to do, is going to be how you make yourself a value creator and immune to being outsourced. People ask me all the time, doesn't the cloud challenge IT with being outsourced? I say no. Failure to become a value creation partner to the lines of business will guarantee that you become outsourced. Guarantee it. In a ballroom in Mumbai with 800 members of the National Association of Software and Services Companies, or now they just call themselves NASCOM. And I looked them up and down and I said, guys, the business of feeding and watering servers for $60 an hour is just not a growth opportunity. Between us, Google, Hewlett-Packard, IBM, Fujitsu, Microsoft, Amazon, we're not going to leave a lot of that business alive in the world. And you have two choices. You can move up the value chain and become a business process designer and value creator, or you can go back to the farm. But the choice of staying where you are is standing on a burning platform. And I don't recommend that. So the questions that I began at the beginning, what's still urgent? Because if you are in a business where you can say, hey, these things are still urgent, our customers still really care about that, cool. Then your leadership can be based on superior execution, enabled by experience, by learning, by optimization, and by automation. If you decide that the strategic value for you is in your business to say, of all the things that are no longer urgent, what still is, and how do we exercise leadership in that? Well, these are important basic capabilities to have if that's what you're going to do. Or you might say, well, what about if we're in a capital-intensive business? And the most threatening disruption to us is that certain things are no longer worth owning. And our capital assets are no longer our strength, but our baggage. Well, you need to be asking some brutal questions like, should we continue to own this, or should we be acquiring it as a service? And divest it before it becomes obvious that no one wants to buy it. What is your differentiation? Great story told by the former CIO at Franklin Covey about how every year the annual report would brag about how they'd reduced order fulfillment times. And the new CIO said, I'm sorry, is there customer value here? Now, those of you who've ever worked with a paper day planner know that you order your refills for the next year, and you turn the page on the final month and it says, don't forget to order your refills. And he checked, and he found that 90% of the requests for next year's refills came in at least 2 weeks before the customer needed them. And everything they'd ever done to get the order fulfillment time down below 1 day was essentially a waste of time. And they were priding themselves on getting down to 90% of orders being fulfilled within 2 hours. You know what? 2 days was 99.99% sufficient. And the business value of all that money they'd been spending was negligible. So what is genuinely differentiating in your business? Not what just is measurable, because some people say, well, there's a metric for it, so the fact we can measure it means it matters. No, it doesn't. Too many things are easy to measure and not really valuable. And what has worth? Because I'm sorry, no one actually cares how hard you worked to do it. No one actually cares how much that asset cost. All they care about is the value it can bring them. These are some fairly brutal conversations to have. There's going to be blood on the floor in a lot of organizations having these conversations. It is our job to give you the mental bandwidth and the time to ask and answer questions like these. Not questions like, how do we administer that upgrade? Not questions like, how do we gather that data? It is our privilege to be the servant of people like you who are going to go out and use that freedom to be awesome. That is what we exist to enable. That is why events like this are so amazing, because this is you coming together and mutually reinforcing that capability. And we are privileged to be your guests in that process. And I'm just so honored to be here personally and so thrilled for Salesforce for what this represents. The fact that you've done this 2 years in a row, profound growth. I'm looking forward to this being something that goes on for quite some time, because the awesomeness is just beginning, really. There are so many people say, oh my gosh, the future economy, there are no jobs. That's just so wrong. The most interesting chess games being played today are being played by freestyle chess teams that combine people with a very good process with algorithms with very consistent and fast delivery of excellent results. And interestingly, Gary Kasparov's observation, one of the world's grandmasters, one of the world's best chess players, says, you know what? Weak players and weak software with a good system outperform good players with good software but a bad process. His observation is one of the world's leading human experts in what used to be considered the iconic task, which would prove that we had machine intelligence when something could do it well. And now we're finding out, you know what? The world's best machines are only as good as the teams and the process that turn their output into amazing results. Because at the very end of the day, did you ever think when you were a child that a double amputee would be considered to have an unfair advantage in an Olympic running event? The complementarity of new advanced technology with human talent and will is the most exciting opportunity that exists in the world today. As a father of 3 20-somethings with a 3-year-old granddaughter and a grandson on the way in November, this really, really matters to me personally. I think it matters to you personally as well for all sorts of reasons. And thank you so much for the chance to share this with you today. I believe there is now a box. We are going to think inside the box for a moment.
Is there a cat in there?
If I put my hand in and there's a loud meow, then something very strange will have happened.
He doesn't know until he observes.
All right.
All right.
But someone who must be present.
It's actually.
Yes.
Actually, that's clear to do. I think we do it on purpose.
Is there a random draw? And I'm holding ticket number 4, 1, 9. Sorry, 4, 1, 2, 7. Well, that was anticlimactic. Oh, 4194127. Okay, he's going in. Well, you're sure about that. All right, that's very generous of you. All right, give it up. Give it up. All right. I'm holding a different color with a completely different nomenclature. 9, 2, 8, 0, 0, 4. I heard an aw, I heard a yay. Now I'm seeing a wave off. 9, 2, 8, 0, 0, 4. All right, all right. That's for you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, really. Thank you all for coming. I just want to take one more quick chance to thank all of you for coming. It's really you guys that make it special and worthwhile. We want to thank our sponsors one more time, because without them we really would not be here. Our volunteers, a lot of people held signs, gave directions, checked people in, really helped us out, and we thank them greatly. Our speakers, we got a lot of really great speakers. And before we close out, I just want to bring up our my fellow organizers, because a lot of work went into this, and I want you to see the other faces as well. Dale Ziegler, Andy O'Connor, Eric Richfield, Jim Carboni, and Denise Carboni. Please come on up.
still are, I would like a copy, please. Yeah, I would like a copy. So yeah, we need to put this. This is the thing. We hear all this awesome stuff. We have no political power or any ability to facilitate any of it.
Influence?
That's right. You do. Okay, good.
You gotta help me
Give this to Ed.
No, you need to help me craft